Let's talk about why Shangri-La Frontier is more than just another anime about video games. As a matter of fact, it's actually the definitive anime about video games. Despite the fact that it seems like there's really no plot and all the main character really does is level up in the game, every gamer who watches this show will tell you that it helped them discover a newfound love for their favorite hobby, which has a lot of value in a market where everyone keeps making the same game over and over again. So in this video, I'd like to explain how Shangri-La Frontier changes the way you play video games by showing you that games are made by the players. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's start with what I said before. If you're a gamer, then I'm sure you'll agree that the market isn't quite what it used to be. I mean, when everything has to be a big budget, open world, Souls-like game of the year, it can get a bit redundant, especially when a lot of devs keep shrinking the skill cap for their games so they can sell more copies. So how does Shangri-La Frontier solve this problem? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Play trash games. Yes, you heard me right. In Shangri-La Frontier, the main character, Sunraku, plays a lot of trash games. Well, that's how it's translated. But what they actually say in Japanese is kusoge, or literally crap game. Now, it isn't exclusive to fighting games, but this is a term you've likely never heard of unless you're part of the fighting game community. In Japan, the term kusoge refers to a game that is so broken because of design flaws that the intended product and the actual experience are completely different. The term gets thrown around a lot in the FGC when a game comes out where you can do long combos or it's really unbalanced, but nothing like that even comes close. To give you an idea of the charm of kusoge games, let's take a quick look at Hokuto no Ken, the Fist of the North Star game developed by Arc System Works. Just so you can have a bit of context, this is a tournament for the game. Now, because the game is so broken, not only can you do infinite combos, but you can do corner carry combos where you literally dribble the other player. Here's what it looks like.
And is with a super.
Oh yeah, he gets reverse, so traveling into basketball conversion if he has enough
He's almost
to
there.
do this. And
He got the bounce.
boost to B, here we go. Alright.
Alright.
Should be,
I wish I had a, like some sort of beverage to take down.
Yeah.
Because this is going to take quite a while.
Yeah, good stuff.
You can never lose hope though. Oh, he's taking a picture during it. Oh my god. Unbelievable. Sick. So sick.
So in case you didn't hear it, the announcer called that a basketball conversion. So the guy landed one basic move and was able to convert that into a corner carry combo that turned into 3 minutes of dribbling, where the guy being dribbled thought it was so funny that he recorded the guy kicking his ass on his phone. This is why Hokuto no Ken is notorious in the FGC, and this is why you will never see devs make another game like it. But that's the charm of these kinds of games. Sure, they're basically unplayable, but if you embrace the broken combos and glitches, then you can have a niche gaming experience that is wildly different from the games that are made today. And that's exactly what Sunraku does. He plays an RPG where the NPC in your party works against you at every turn. He plays a fighting game not unlike Hokuto no Ken. He also plays an MMO where the drop rates are so trash that everyone just steals loot and ignores the campaign. But he still has fun. And that is because he takes the time to find these games and figure out how to get the most fun out of them. Sure, it might seem pointless to learn a 97 hit combo in a 25-year-old game, but you can have a ton of fun doing it. It's because players can take the time to discover these glitches and use them to their advantage. It's just one way players make the game. But before I say more on that, make sure to like the video if you're enjoying it so far. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it helps spread the video to other viewers like you. Now, kusoge titles are stupid fun, but what if you don't have time to play 25-year-old games? What if your friends will only play the new games? Well, you can still have fun doing that too, and that's exactly what we see in Shangri-La Frontier. Sunraku decides to give trash games a break and try the newest MMO sensation, Shangri-La Frontier. Naturally, as someone used to skill-based games, he completely ignores the game's campaign as soon as he makes his character. And this is where we can get into one of the ways you can have fun with some of the more mainstream games, or any game for that matter. It's when you make your own quest. I'm using quests since we're talking about MMOs, but this applies to any game. In Shangri-La Frontier, Sunraku ignores the beaten path and never goes to the starting village. Instead, he decides to grind right away and fight all the nearby mobs. When he discovers a rare mob, he decides now he's going to farm for this rare mob so he can get 2 of these daggers with a low drop rate. So he does that, goes to the second village, still hasn't gone to the first village, by the way, and then goes out at night when there's even more mobs at even higher difficulty. Now, I won't say what happens next for spoiler reasons, but basically Sunraku gets a rare encounter that leads him to unlock a quest that only he has access to. Mind you, he's in the most popular game right now, and out of the millions of players, he is the first and only person to unlock this quest. So it's in the game, but because he broke from the beaten path, Sunraku was able to do something in the game that nobody else can. He essentially makes the game his own by deciding how he wants to play rather than playing based on the best way or how he's supposed to play, which is really common now in a lot of games. In RPGs, you'll see posts like the best way to play X game or the best build if you want this class. It's like, did you try playing the game on your own before you let people tell you how to play it? Or if you love fighting games, you'll see people post tier lists and then people will just play whoever is top tier until they switch to someone else because they're not in triple S tier anymore. I always tell people, stop trying to play the best character and just pick the character that seems the most fun. Maybe they don't have broken combos, but if you have fun watching their cool special moves and animations, then that's who you should play as. Now, this was something I realized when I started reading the manga about 2 years ago, and it made me go back to a bunch of old games and mess around with them. Skip forward a year or two later when the anime comes out, I got this desire to explore games all over again. So recently I got back into Skyrim, and boy, let me tell you, following everything the game tells you to do versus doing whatever you want and role-playing as a character you create for yourself, you can play Skyrim 100 times and get 100 completely different games. I mean, it wasn't till I was older that I realized that you could play without really being the Dragonborn in a game about being the Dragonborn, just by ignoring the main questline, which is basically what Sunraku does. By playing the game how he wants and focusing on what he wants to get out of it, he essentially makes his own game. But that's just one way to make your own game. You can do it by yourself, and you usually have to with single-player games like Skyrim, but you can also make the game along with the community. And this is the truest sense of the idea that players make the game. So, in Shangri-La Frontier, Sunraku has his questline, and it helps him catch up to the meta rather quickly. As he does this, his online friend sees how good he is and approaches him with an offer. Again, I don't want to reveal too much, but it goes something like this. Sunraku and one of his other friends are approached by their mutual friend Pencilgon. Pencilgon proposes that the three of them take on one of the game's main bosses. Now, in Shangri-La Frontier, the main bosses are 7 legendary creatures that are all part of the main story, and they are intended to be incredibly difficult encounters that only high-level parties can take down. So, for the small group of 3 to try and do this on their own is already a pretty big deal, especially considering that this particular boss is meant to be encountered in the late game, and no one in the game has beat any of the other bosses yet. But you still have this group of 3 deciding to take it on, even though they're going against the beaten path of the main story. Now, I won't say how it turns out, but this whole mission shakes up the entire game and its community. I mean, you have entire guilds dedicated to finding each individual boss. The whole player base is working together to beat these bosses regardless of how the story is set up. And this is why this is the truest sense of the idea that players make the game. It's because the players are the game. The whole thing with the main boss is the best example, but there's tons of other examples in Shangri-La Frontier. There's that looting game I mentioned earlier. That game was meant to be a hardcore RPG, but the players turned it around and developed a community where everyone just loots each other and ignores the quests. When Sunraku gets his quest, eventually people start to notice him stand out and suddenly he's on the front page of all the forums for the game. This idea that the players are the game can be seen in just about any genre. In World of Warcraft, there are tons of major cities that are basically ghost towns because the actual players are only coming together in a fraction of those cities. Plus, the devs had to revamp older versions of the game when players decided to make their own servers. That's an example of devs adapting to players rather than it being the other way around. In the world of fighting games, you'll quickly realize that the multiplayer experience is defined by the people who actually hop online. The games will start out simple and basic on day one because there's a larger pool of players at launch and people are just learning to play the game. But skip forward a year later and suddenly it feels impossible to play online because a lot of those people left and the people who stayed behind are crazy good at the game now. So you can get two wildly different games based on what point in time you decide to play the game. And that's because the players are that online experience. And Shangri-La Frontier helps you see that. So this is how Shangri-La Frontier changes the way you play video games. By watching this anime, you'll realize that even the most broken games have something to offer. So if you take the time to pick out games that look fun, you can invest time in those games and find everything they have to offer. No matter what game you decide to play, you can have fun if you take the time and effort to create an adventure for yourself rather than just trying to mindlessly run through the game. That is what Shangri-La Frontier shows you, and that is why it is officially the definitive anime on video games. But now I'd like to hear what you think. What do you think of Shangri-La Frontier? What are some of your favorite experiences with video games? Share your thoughts and see what everyone else has to say down in the comments. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week on my community tab. And if you'd like another discussion like this one, then make sure to check out my recent video on JJK. In that video, I talk about the importance of the upcoming fight between Ouji and Sukuna. You can find it in the playlist linked right here. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.